everybody, welcome to ChiuStream, talking about art and life as an artist. Here's your host, artist and educator Bobby Chiu.
All right, hey everybody, and welcome to ChiuStream. Today I am super honored to have Dave Rapoza on the stream, an incredible artist with so much variety, so much unparalleled skills. This is going to be a really fantastic show. So, without further ado, I want to welcome Dave Rapoza. Thanks, Dave, for spending some time with me.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It's
Right on.
beautiful.
So I want to start off with the first question here. Matt asks, I want to do a Kickstarter. I want to do a Kickstarter for an art book or a comic, but I'm nervous about it. Since you both have done very successful Kickstarters, can you give some advice?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. A little backstory. So I've done, I think, two Kickstarters so far. One was for an animated comic book called Nico and the Sword of Light, um, and that was very successful. And the second one was a, like really successful, and that was for the Schoolism subscription program.
Hmm.
And of course, Dave's raised a heck of a lot of money in Kickstarters as well, so it'd be very interesting to hear both sides. I believe the schoolism one, that's a bit less common. It was for, online education, but I could definitely speak about the comic book version. And what I did with the comic book version was, it's an animated comic book. So one of the best ways to get people to kind of respond and support is to find influencers, other people
Hmm.
that are constantly talking about good Kickstarters, things like that. Um, Now, at first, we were thinking, oh, we'll just, you know, hit up all the different bloggers we know, all the different, influencers we know, and then quickly we're like, wow, that's a lot of influencers, and there is something to be said about kind of spreading yourself out too thin, I felt. A lot of like the bigger influencers don't want to talk about something that everybody else has already talked about.
And they
Um,
also sometimes don't want to talk about a Kickstarter.
yeah, that was also something we experienced. So what we did was we took um, other successful animated comic book Kickstarters that were somewhat similar to ours because ours was special. Ours was the first traditionally animated, fully animated comic book. But there were other motion graphic, comics. So we took the most iconic images from those projects, from those Kickstarter projects especially, and then we would upload it into Google and search by image, not by words, right? You can upload your image there, and then the top ones that show up are the top influencers besides the person's
Hmm.
Kickstarter page. And those people are already interested in talking about Kickstarter projects, right? So then those were the ones we hit up and did the most research on and contacted. And that seemed to work really well for us. Now, Dave, you've had at least two very successful Kickstarters that I know of, right?
Yeah, the two Kickstarters we had for Steve Lichman, which is a comic book that myself and Daniel Warren, we work on together. We write it and I draw, and then we just like color it together and handle everything, distribution and all that. So we've
Wow.
had two of them 2 years in a row. And yeah, it was a pretty crazy process.
Well,
But
first one raised, I believe, was that already in the six figures for your first one?
the first one raised, oh man, I don't want to get my own numbers wrong. Um, it was close to three, what was it? Maybe it wasn't three, it was like 198 or something. We ended up raising through PayPal as well for pre-orders, something around like 220,000. And then for the second one, we got up to we've broken like 400 now.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. But yeah, it's weird for us though. Like for us, we're just doing like like it's not about the artwork. Like in a lot of, I mean, in a lot of Kickstarters that I've seen of people I know that I can like ask questions about, most of the time it kind of revolves around the artwork and like they're
Hmm.
selling the book based on the quality. And for us, like our books are really high quality. Like we have cloth cover, hardcover books, but the content itself is more about just like writing. Like the artwork kind of sucks. So like so we're just trying to do like a funny book. Like we're just trying to do something that has jokes, and we didn't know how to market that at all. Like it was such a weird thing because, if it's pretty, then you know that like art blogs and whatever, like other people that I know who are bigger artists are gonna want to like, like they can share it and it makes sense.
Uh-huh.
But it's like if you're writing jokes and a lot of them are like offensive, or they kind of I don't know, they can kind of turn a lot of people away, and you don't want to be like, oh, this has so many horrible things in it. Do I really want to share this? And then the other side of that is the Kickstarter stigma we had a lot of problems with because we couldn't really get anybody to share it. Like I took your advice. I asked Bobby, what he did for his Kickstarters. And as I know that Bobby always has good ideas, smart about marketing himself or the things that you're doing. And I always admired that about you. So like when you gave me the advice of look up what other comic book artists are doing and like see who is sharing all their stuff,
Hmm.
it sounded like when you typed that to me, I was like, wow, that's the purest common sense. Somehow it's like just gone. Like how did I not think of that? And I was like, well, that's amazing advice. So I just like went on all of those, and I think like maybe 10% of them or something, even then, covered us, which I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy because both times we didn't really have very much coverage. Most of what we got was from people sharing it on Imager, fans on like Reddit, and then Tapastic, which is an online comics website. But in general, we just kind of had like this growing momentum online. So for an art book, if you're doing like an art book Kickstarter, it's just a different thing entirely than what we did. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you kind of have to like start to build to the Kickstarter. For us, like we had the book already made before we did a Kickstarter, so that we knew like if this falls out from under us, we can at least have this book to put out or sell or something. And yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, it can be pretty daunting because you never really know. Like if you have all this, if you need to raise all this money for your project, you could end up being like, you know, relying on this funding, and then the funding runs out and you're just kind of stuck in the middle of it. So I think if it's like your first book, make sure that you have like a huge portion of it done ahead of time
Mm.
before you start the Kickstarter, because otherwise you definitely don't want to depend on that money. Because even when we say that like we raise the amount of money we raise for our books, that doesn't mean, that's all profit. It's like the amount that goes into the logistics of shipping all those books, like putting them on the pallets to put on a boat to get over from China, and then setting up the trucks that are going to ship these to Amazon facilities that are going to ship them to you. Then that's half of it, and then there's printing, paying for the printing and all that. So you have to take everything into consideration in what you're actually going to be taking from the project. So after all that, I mean, it does get to a point, unless you're like very successful as an artist right now, sometimes it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense to just do a Kickstarter. I mean, a Kickstarter isn't the only way to get
Wow.
your stuff out.
But yours, that's such an interesting, story because like your first Kickstarter, you had, I guess, a lot less coverage than your second one, right?
No, not really.
Oh, oh, okay.
We had about the same. I was really surprised, like, because you'd think we thought that it would get more because we were successful the first time. We delivered on time. Everything went well. We could actually like, point to it and say like, we understand that there's a lot of problems with Kickstarter. Like I'd write this in the thing. So like, we've already done one. It's successful. We successfully shipped like 7,000 books.
Hmm.
It's like, we can point to something, but even then they were still like, it's our policy on this blog where we don't cover Kickstarters.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit, yeah, for me as well. And then, um, did you ask your friends to share your project?
Yeah, everybody shared it. One interesting thing that happened was that, we went over all of the orders, and after the book was done, and we noticed that the majority of the people who were buying our books were not part of any kind of art community. They
Hmm.
were just people who like, to
They just
laugh.
like the story. That's
Yeah. So,
that's
I mean, that was,
fantastic.
yeah, it's really nice, but at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of like a whole nother place. like, like we can't rely on like old things, like our career working as artists.
And did you like study writing at all? Or you just were like, I got some ideas for some stories, I'm just gonna do it.
No, no studying, nothing like that. I mean, me and Dan, we've been writing together since we were, I don't know, 12, 13. So like we've always done this. We've always written, and we were just like, why don't we do this for a job? Like why do we just write jokes all the time? Like every day we'd be doing like what our escape from working on, like this wizard or that dragon was like, because that was all our jobs. We were like, let's just like make fun of it. So we'd always make fun of the things we were doing just, to get a laugh out of each other. And that's where like Steve Lichman comes from, as we were talking about like how stupid it was that there's just these monsters waiting to be murdered in a dungeon somewhere, and all these
I could
happy
totally
kids.
see somebody like Seth Rogen producing that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it'd be really great. I mean, we haven't found anything like that sounds too great yet, but we've had offers for stuff, which is awesome. And yeah, it's funny when you do something that's like totally different than what you're used to. You do like a comedy thing, and then it enters into a different like universe of people who are interested in your projects, and you're just like, whoa, what is this world I knew nothing about?
Yeah, because it's so different from what everybody has been kind of talking about, with your art in recent weeks, which has been Logan, the Logan poster that you created for IMAX, the Power Rangers poster. It's very different stuff.
Yeah, I'm like all over the place. Uh, I kind of do like everything now. I was thinking about it the other day with my wife. I was like, I think this is the last thing I haven't done in like a field, like the movie poster thing, like actually having a real movie poster. Because I've designed toys, designed like, I've worked on ad campaigns, I've done storyboards, animation, like uh, just about every job I can think of in art. I've had at least like a little bit of experience with.
Now,
And I was like, that's so weird. But I love doing that kind of thing.
well, what probably most people knew you from in the very beginning was, you know, your very painterly stuff, right? And when you started to do more of like the uh, almost like cell shading on comic book kind of style illustrations, I was just wondering if there was any kind of like resistance, from people just going, I want to see that painterly stuff.
Oh, absolutely. All the time. I mean, I still get that. I still get people who will just want me to go back to doing the other stuff, and I totally get it. It's like, there are plenty of artists that I like who, when they switch up and start to do something else, I'm like, but you have this crazy thing that you do. Like, go back. Like, I love seeing it. I mean, but I get it. It's like, I totally understand that. I had a lot of resistance, but I don't know. I don't it doesn't really like affect me too much because I just want to be happy in what I'm doing. And I know that if I'm doing something and it doesn't get me excited to do it, then I'm just gonna slack and I won't put in my best work. I need to be excited about my job. I need to be happy. And, if it means abandoning something I've been doing for years, then I'm totally down for that. Like, if it's gonna make life better, then I'm gonna do it. So, Yeah, whenever I got into doing any other style, I was always just thinking like, I just want to enjoy what I do. So, who cares if I lose work or whatever? I mean, I always tried to make it palpable, like take a thing that I do and, like if I'm going to transition into a new style, one thing I've done to kind of maintain work is I will do this new style, play with it for a long time, and then take it and apply it to kind of like a portfolio piece. So I started doing cell shading, and then I moved into doing. I was like, okay, so in order to make this a thing, I need to show that it can work for jobs. So I did a whole series of X-Men portraits in the style of like the 90s,
Hmm.
80s, like comic books, and that kind of it didn't like blow up or anything, but it got around online, and that's how I actually got my first jobs working for 20th Century Fox. They
Wow.
hired me on to do like poster compositions. So I'd basically be designing like what the poster would look like when they went into doing photography for it. So I'd do these compositions and then they'd bring the actors in or the people that would stand in for the actors. And they would pose in my poses and they'd take the photos for the posters.
Now, there's questions from the audience as well, but
Sure.
since you're my guest, I'm just gonna ask some questions as well, because I would love to know kind of like the journey from doing poster comps to doing the posters.
Okay. Well, I always talked about it. Like I'm really open with the people I work with. Like I don't know. If I find somebody that I really love to work with, then I just kind of talk about that stuff. I'm like, one thing I would love to do eventually, if you ever have, that kind of job available, I would love to create something for you guys. Like, I love doing what I do for you now, but, if ever I can create a poster, like, I'm definitely down for anything you want to do.
Now, I know you don't live in California, right? You
No,
still don't live in California.
I'm in,
Um, what's that?
yeah, I'm in Denver right now.
Right. So did you go to kind of like the studio rap party or anything like that for
No,
Logan?
nothing. I've been so busy working. I work all day, every day, so I don't go anywhere.
Okay, well, uh, and thank you again for, spending some time with me,
Oh,
knowing your time's so valuable.
no.
Maybe we can just go to the next question here then. That was a really awesome answer, by the way. Very interesting and insightful. I'm sure a lot of people are like, yeah, I need to just care about what I care about and just do what I care about. Um, Epson asks, when trying to break into the industry, should I use sites like ArtStation only for showcasing my best finished pieces, or should I also upload sketches and studies for possible feedback? Now, do you do the forum stuff?
No, I don't have an ArtStation page or anything like that.
Yeah, mine's like I have one. It's not super active right now,
Yeah,
so I can't really speak on that. Um, but
I think we're kind of like past that world now. Like, I mean, it's not like it's not valuable. Like, you always want to have your gallery around,
mhm.
but I don't know. I think there's more to be said for places like Reddit and Imager and you know places where artists aren't. I think is more important than I mean you need to have a central location for your gallery. I like to have my central location for my gallery on my website because I mean not to say that like I'm afraid of competition or anything like that, but when you go to my boutique store, I want you to be at mine. I want you to like come to my website and there's my artwork. Like you're there to look at my stuff.
Hmm.
And to have it be like, oh, there's that, but I'm a potential employer and look at this artist in the thumbnail right next to this. It's way better than him. Like, I'm just gonna hire that guy. I didn't know he existed. So like to have like your central gallery in a space like that, like it's definitely good for networking and having your stuff out there with other artists. but you definitely want to have a place that's your own. And I always have, like, if I'm going out into the world with like something and I want to share it, I'll put it on Reddit or Imager and then have it linked back to my website. But no, I don't have any kind of forums or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure there are people who get a lot from it, but just personally, I don't have a ton of experience with the newer stuff. Like,
That's so interesting, like obviously it makes perfect sense to go to other avenues, not just where artists lurk, right? Because it's not like you're catering your stuff only for artists to buy. It's for any art
right.
lover or story lover.
Well, artists don't really buy a lot of like art stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, they do, but they don't really buy from other artists necessarily. So it's like to be on Reddit and Imager and other sites, then where there's people who aren't artists. It's like we're illustrators. If you are an illustrator, it's like you want to, like your product is for people who want to buy cool things. So you get the best feedback, I think, from those places as far as being a commercial artist, in my opinion.
That's awesome. I'm gonna try that, with my next image for sure. Um, I've never posted anything on Reddit or Imager. Uh, but doing the forum stuff, I used to do forum stuff, and I'm trying to get back into it. I had a quite a long hiatus. Um, but something that helps is don't just post your stuff and then leave. It's a
Right.
community. So imagine, going to a party and not talking to anybody. Talk to people, right? Uh, and then when they see your comment and things like that, they can click on your avatar and brings them to your, profile and your art, and it works. It helps.
Yeah.
Now, Chloe asks, have you ever seen something so absolutely bizarre in your life you drop whatever you're doing to draw it? Hmm.
Oh, I was gonna, I was gonna go the opposite way. I was gonna say I saw a guy pooping next to his car on the highway, but then I heard the draw it, and I was like, no, I didn't want to draw
Can you hold that squat just a little longer, please, sir?
it. Sorry.
Well, Anik asks, what should be the time period for an artist from beginner to break into industry? Um, y- you know, I don't know what you think about this, Dave, but it definitely seems like a lot of people, if you feel like you're absolutely ready to break into industry, then you waited too long. Just do it. Just
Yeah, I
try.
mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, like, I think first and foremost like you should want to do what you want to do. Like you should have something in you that you would do it anyway. And breaking into the industry, if you set your sight, I feel like too narrow, then, like whatever the ambiguous thing of industry, it's like you may end up going down a path that you didn't intend on. Like for me, that was me saying, I want to be a concept artist.
Hmm.
And I thought I actually did want to do that. What I didn't realize I was doing was like, I was just putting myself in this tiny box and I wouldn't let myself do things like the comic I do now, like Steve Lichman, because it wasn't, quote unquote serious, or it wasn't like, involved in this thing that I thought I wanted to do, this like field that I thought I was going to be in. And yeah, I mean the industry, like if you're hardworking and you're developing yourself because like you have to have discipline and you also have to have a love for it. So it's like if you have both of those things, you're going to go somewhere. And if you don't just only do art and exist in like your own vacuum. It's like obviously you got to go out and have people see it and have it be relevant to something. So it's like you have to have a bit of experience in promoting yourself and some business sense as far as like negotiating things and whatever as you grow. But down the road, it's like, what do you really want to be? Do you just want to be an artist who makes it in the industry, or do you want to be an artist that makes it, like that happens to make it because you're so good? Like, I don't know. I
Well,
just think like jobs will find you eventually if you're constantly putting yourself out there,
Hey,
working.
you're an example to exactly what you're saying. Like, I remember a while back, I was like, I forget what was going on, but I was like, oh yeah, let's set up a phone call. And then you were saying, well, I live in a very mountainous area, and the phone doesn't really, right? It doesn't really work too well up there.
Yeah.
So, for those of you out there where it's like, yeah, I live in LA, but I can't get anybody to like see my stuff. Well, Dave lives in the mountains and barely gets reception. You know, anything is possible.
Oh my God. I would tell you so many things. I lived in New Hampshire on this mountain called Loon Mountain, and I lived in a ski like where they have like the loft kind of whatever townhouse things. And we rented one, me and my ex, and lived there for a year. And I lived in New Hampshire for a few years, but during that time is when I was breaking into doing something as an artist. Got like magic cards and grew into doing like some concept work for games and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter where you live. Like if that's really something that's holding you back, then that's just your own excuse. That's just something that you tell yourself. Like I can I rant about something for a second?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
This is
loving this.
something that I see a lot, and I am not calling anybody out by any means, but this is something that I see often is artists will put up online that like they're not where they want to be as a person or as an artist and whatever. And there's always this explanation. It's like this long drawn out explanation as to why they're not doing it. They give themselves all these excuses, all these easy ways out of saying like, "Oh, I'm not doing it because I'm not in LA. Oh, I'm not doing it because you know what? I just don't have the right connections. Like, I'm not doing it because,
Or there's no art community where I
yeah,
live.
right, exactly.
Yet you're probably the only person on that mountain working for Riot or whatever it is that you're
Yeah,
doing.
it's me and Bob and Joe. They're Hicks, and we all do art together. No, none of that happened. But yeah, like it's just you. It's just you saying that because it's easier than doing the unknown. It's easier than going out there and failing all the time until you get it right. But that's the only way to do it. The only way to do it is to bomb and just like die on the field, just sit out there and just rot. It's like you work and you work and you work until you figure it out. I mean, but if you really want to do it, you'll figure it out. But if you tell yourself that there's a good reason why you're not figuring it out, then you're just messing yourself up. There is no excuse for it. I mean, like you can really do whatever, and you're gonna be dead in like a few years. Like just do it. Like I don't know, like the regret thing. Like you'll spend your
Mm.
whole life going to a job that you hate, a whole life instead of like a few years of working your ass off to try and be somebody and do what you want to do. It's like people are so willing to do that because it's something that's understood. But all of those things were not understood at one point. Like Tony Hawk did the 900 on a skateboard, and then all of a sudden everybody could do the 900. Does that mean that Tony Hawk is some magician that gave his power to everybody? No, it's just that he proved it was possible, and then other people saw it and they went, "Oh, that's something I can do too." That's most of the crazy jobs that are out there right now. Doctors back in the day, they used to have to go to a facility and work with a doctor who might not even know what he's doing and just shadow that person for a long time. And now people can just go to school for it. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's something that people have figured out. But it was just as crazy as being an artist working in the industry, crazier. You were dealing with people's lives. It's like the only excuse, I don't know, there is none. It's just, you just have to want it and be willing to suffer like that and go through the growing pains of figuring it out.
It's kind of like you're gonna have to put in hard work anyways. Do you want to put it in now or when you're, 60? Because you're gonna suffer if you didn't put in the hard work now, when you're older, right? I kind of think of it like that. It's almost like it takes the same amount of effort. It's gonna come, you know, life is gonna make you work. whether you like it or not in some way or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, it's just like, well, it's just one of it's kind of known by other people and one of them isn't.
Now, the next question comes from Alex. Alex asks, how did Dave end up working for Riot Games? And can you give some tips for breaking into the video game industry?
Do a lot of video game artwork to break in. I mean, one thing that I used to do in the beginning when I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And by the way, I'm not saying when I say like that I got into doing concept art and all that, like as a thing that like you should know what you want to do before you get in. You won't, but just get into whatever, and then if that industry isn't what you wanted it to be, then do the thing you thought it was in your head. But um, to get into Riot, what I did was I really just got into doing like, I know I've said this a million times, it's like just doing like fan art stuff because that's what a portfolio is anyway. It's like if you're going to apply somewhere and they go like, we want to see that you can draw Superman, we're DC. It's like, oh, but I have a portfolio of Spider-Man. They're like, well, we see that you can draw anatomy, but we really want to see if you can draw Superman. Like that thing right there is something that it applies to games too. It's like you just kind of do fan art in the style or whatever of somebody who's already doing it, especially in the beginning, just to be like, I can do it too. I can render or whatever to that level, and just push yourself. Like keep these people as a benchmark. I would do like a wall. I'd have two monitors, and the second monitor would be like a wall of other artists. And I would just be like, Rocky Balboa, like looking at it and just training constantly, just being like, I have to be at least that good. I know that they're hiring this person, so I have to be at least that good. And I would work up to that level as much as possible and then put it out there and try and gain some momentum as somebody who works. Not really, I don't work in that field, but I do kind of. Well, like just because I'm making believe I do. Like nobody's paying me for it, but I'm kind of just like doing it anyway.
Now, when you talk about training, it really reminds me of the thing that I don't know if you still do it, the Crimson Dagger group. Maybe can you tell us a little bit about that, how it came about, and what it kind of did for you?
Sure, yeah, that was chaos. It was really great. Crimson Daggers was a live stream back on the old live stream format. It was like Procaster and stuff. This website's pretty much dead now, but it's basically what Twitch was. What Twitch is now is like a earlier version of that. And I saw this platform and I was like, I know myself. I know that I procrastinate. I know that I have a problem focusing on what I need to do. And I noticed that whenever I was working in a room with somebody, that I would work harder because I just wanted them to like not think I was a total piece of crap. So I'd always push myself really hard. I've done that my whole life with everything. So it's like I thought if everybody was watching me do this, I bet I could do it every day. But if I told myself I would just do it on my own, I might not do it. So I set up this page, which is Crimson Daggers. It was just like a, wake up, work hard. I forget. I think it was like, stop being a piece of shit or something like that. I forget what it said. But it was something like that. And it was like this mantra I had in my head. And I'd go on to the stream and I would do studies every morning for at least an hour. And I would do paintings from life. I would do anatomy from like Loomis or, Andrew Loomis or Hogarth or whoever. I would do nothing but fundamentals. I'd study from photos, study from life, study from anatomy books, study from other, famous artists. I do master painting studies, all of this. And the whole community that ended up growing around that was like, I was just talking to everybody every day, like, we can do this, like all of us can do this together. So it was kind of this thing that developed over time where we just became a group of people who met every single morning and studied. So I'd tell myself that I'd be up at certain time every day. I would study for an hour, something important, something that I knew I lacked skill at. And then develop that over however long until it was unmanageable. That's what I told myself. I'm going to do this until I'm a professional artist because I wasn't working really before this. But I was like, this is going to bring me there. And I thought if I could do this, I could show everybody that this is what you have to do to become a professional. And when you can see it, then it's possible. And so a bunch of people were on there, and it took like I did it every day for maybe like 2 years or something like that.
Wow, that's amazing.
I didn't. I was like something crazy. I think it was 2 years maybe or close to that. But it became too hard because I was getting work all the time, and I was like, I can't do both of these things. I can't work on my crazy deadlines and also do this. And then, the idea was that once I'm at that point, I'd pass it on to somebody else. And eventually, my friend that I work on, Steve with, Dan Warren, he took over for it
So
and
does he
started.
still do it?
No, he doesn't do it anymore. I mean, we
He
just
got
do
too
our
busy.
stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it was really great. I mean, if there's a way that you can force yourself to be disciplined, like you can trick yourself into doing hard work. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're, I guess it's easy to kind of just be like, well, I don't have to do it. But if you are like that, you feel that kind of guilt of other people depending on you to be there at a certain time, then, having something like Twitch and just being like, I'm here every day studying, hang out, let's figure it out together. That's a great way, in my opinion, to really like work on things and get better and yeah, have somebody holding you accountable for it.
Yeah, the harder part is definitely when you start gaining traction, you start gaining, jobs and everything, right? And then how do you manage your time then?
Yeah, you kind of plateau in a lot of ways, I think, if you're not careful.
Most people, I would say, yeah. A lot of people now that, kind of been in the industry for a good minute, you see a lot of people f fade in and out in 5 years.
Right. Yeah, that's why I switch styles so much because I'm just like, I don't want to be just this one person. I don't want to only, I don't want to get stuck like doing the same thing
That's
because
totally how I felt.
it's dangerous.
Totally. Yeah, like just kept working on the same kind of projects, the same kind of jobs. They're very cool. It is very, very cool, but there's something about human nature that's just like never satisfied, right, Dave? And it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what you're doing. You're just like, ugh, but I did this before. Ugh, like, well, not totally like that, perhaps, but um, I definitely felt it. So what I ended up doing was I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna set up all these workshops all around the world, and then I'm gonna
Mm,
go to these things, and then my job will be to learn, to attend the workshops. So that was fantastic.
right.
And now it's like, okay, I'm gonna do a stream every Friday, and I'm just gonna show whatever ZBrush crap I end up doing. And in the beginning, it was like horrible. Now it's like, it's getting there, but I
It
still have a
looks
lot to
cool.
learn. Oh, thanks. Um, Great. So next question, and there's tons of questions, so I'm kind of going through the questions as well. My assistant is kind of uh, curating the questions, so we don't always have what kind of brush do you use and things like that. Okay, guys. So,
Wait, one thing before we move on
oh,
from the
sure.
last thing. Uh, Christina Meyer Falkers in the chat points out a great thing. Crimson Daggers forum is still active, by the way. If
Oh,
you want to
fantastic.
seek that out, anybody who's interested in like really hardcore people.
That's awesome. No holds barred. Uh, Jenna asks, out of several paintings with light and color courses offered on Schoolism, who do you recommend for beginners? I would say either Dice Satsumi Robert Kondo's class, Painting with Light and Color. They are fantastic, even for professionals. Or Sam Nielsen's Fundamentals of Lighting. That one's really good too. Um, Next question, Alex. You're ready for a change. How do you decide whether to go solo or join an already established studio? How different do you think your life would be if you'd chosen the other path? This is very interesting. Have you ever been in a big studio environment, Dave?
Not for any extended periods of time. I mean, I worked for oh my goodness, I can't remember the name. They were just acquired by Amazon a couple of years ago. But I worked for this video game studio and flew out to California for a little bit to work on their game. And I've never worked in like an art studio. I mean, I just don't. This is just me. I don't like the idea. Like even when I'm around a bunch of people and I'm working, like I can't. I have a really hard time doing both. I'm like kind of laser focused when I'm doing something. So if people come up to me and like ask me anything, I'd have to have like a really strict like when I'm here at the office, I might as well be alone.
Mm,
like like I just don't have that. Like I have downtime where I do things and like travel and stuff, and that's different. But when I'm working, I'm working. I love to have experiences that are going to come back and influence the work that I'm doing, but I don't have those while I know I have to work, you know? So like that always kind of wasn't something that attracted me personally, just for my own like the kind of schedule I like to keep. So um I mean, unless everybody is like really crazy talented and like pushing themselves like nuts. Like I would love to be around that for a little bit, just to
mhm,
have that kind of drive to be like these people are so inspiring and exciting to be around that like I can't not think of new things I want to do and like I can't not find influence in all of these amazing people. Like that's something else. Like if that were the case, then I'd be down. But just like a regular studio where we're just working on games and we're kind of like, you know, just doing it to do it because it's like it's the workplace and then there's also cool people there. Like that's something I'm not totally interested in.
So if you were like invited to work on the Star Wars team at ILM, then you'd be like, okay, Doug Chang and these
Yeah, like
guys.
I'd be down for doing something like really crazy where it's like a once in a lifetime like you know I'm not going to be doing this forever. Like this is something that's special. Like you know you don't get that kind of opportunity all the time. Like stuff like that, I'm definitely down for short periods of time. But it's like you were saying before, um, everything has like no matter how great something is, it's always going to be what's the next thing. So I don't want to stay in any one place with like a contract or whatever, or just like relying on somebody else to bring me to another level. Like I want it to be on me. Like that it's not like it's like in high school where you kind of you're the best artist in your class. I don't want to be that. I want to compare myself to the world and like what everybody else is doing and just be like, what can I do that's it's going to like do something for me and like the world? Like what's going to be something big? And I think for me personally, like whenever I'm in a small box, it's like I run as fast as the person next to me.
Hmm. I all of a sudden just pictured a lizard. You know, when you put lizards in a bigger cage,
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
them they grow bigger. Um, very interesting. Now, I kind of had the very similar experience. I did for a while, like constantly thought, oh, what would it be like in a big studio, working in the studio and everything. But I think one thing that we can absolutely say as truth is that no job is perfect, no situation is perfect. There's always
Right.
a trade-off. A lot of my studio friends are like always like, "Oh, I wish I was doing what you're doing right now," and you know, you could just take a break whenever or whatever. But uh, yeah, so there is no perfect scenario.
No, isn't it? I think the perfect scenario is a constantly changing one where you're like always challenged.
Ah, I like that. Very cool. Now, Ferrex asks, how can I improve as an artist if everyone around me says I'm great? No one gives me real criticism, but I do not have the money to get some courses. I'm in college. That's a really interesting one. And I've seen that before, people coming to comic conventions or whatever, showing portfolios and just going, kind of the same thing. Nobody has any criticism
Mm.
for me. So, well, first of all, like we were just talking about Crimson Daggers. That cost you how much money, Dave, to do?
Just
Zero,
my
right?
soul.
Exactly, exactly. And your soul grew from that experience,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So your soul got something out of it. So, don't wait. Don't wait. Listen to what Dave is saying and, just
Don't
do
give
what you want
yourself a
to do.
way out. Don't like show yourself the door and be like, "Hey, you know what? This is why I'm not doing it." No. It's just like even saying that, that's an out. That's you giving yourself an out. You have the internet. Go on the internet, look at other artists. Are you that? Are you the person that you want to be? And if you're not yet, then recognize that and tell your friends like, "You know what? I really appreciate it. Thank you." Like be nice, whatever. You don't have to like call them out and be like, "But I suck." Come on. Help me out.
Hit me in the
Like
face.
yeah, like
Tear up my
it'd be
drawing.
it'd be nice to have some like critical feedback sometimes, but if you know what you have to do, like you sound aware, then just go for it. Nobody's stopping you. I mean, no, I mean, maybe they are, but get away from those people. But
The
like,
other advice I liked from you was you said you put up a second monitor with all of these
yeah,
people that you want to get to that level. You want to do that thing, right? And that's something that Ryan Lang also said he did to start working on, Avengers and Marvel movies and stuff, was that he just got the art books and was like, okay, this is the goal, right?
mm,
And I got to do something that fits in with this kind of art.
yeah. Well, I mean, I got a thing for that. I mean, like I call it new normal. That's
Mm,
that's what I call it because I always put myself. I work the best under pressure all the time. I That's the only way I'll get something done. So like when we did the Steve book, the last Steve book was 400 pages. And I was like, that's 2 years back to back. The first one was 256 pages. The second one's 400 pages. And I was just like, okay, the new normal now is that I have to draw and ink and do all the text and stuff on 4 pages a day, like minimum in the comic. And to me, that was crazy. It was just like, I've never done that before. I don't know anybody who does that. It's just
mm,
like I'm just going to decide that that's something because I watched like South Park 6 days to air
mm.
and they do an entire show in 6 days and I was like if they can do that then anything is possible. Like that's crazy. So it's like 4 pages a day shouldn't be that nuts. That's like 120 whatever pages a month or something. And I just started doing that and just decided that that's what it had to be. And that helped me a ton. It was just being like, no, this is just what it is. Like, if you can just decide that you're not going to limit yourself and stick to that, then, I mean, to me, that's really all I need. Is like, I see that and I go, like, okay, there's this artist who does this thing that I also want to do. Why do I have it in my head that they're better than me? Why do I have it stuck there that this is something I can't do? And it's just like that's total crap. It's like just say you can. Just say no, this is just what it is. I am going to be like this person. And even when you like try to mimic somebody or like whatever, if you're afraid of that, I think there's a huge stigma or at least there was of just like copying people. You'll never fully be that person. You're always going to be yourself with every influence that you have thrown into a pot like a gumbo. You're just going to be some new thing. It's like you're going to take on every influence you have, and then it's going to turn into something eventually. But it takes a lot of time before you take in all of those things, get good at all those things, and then come out as your person. It's like, so don't worry about that in the beginning. Just dive in and say, like, no, this is just the way that it is now. I'm going to be this.
Fantastic. Now, Jose asks, does Dave also paint traditionally? His work has such a traditional feel to it sometimes. Just wondering.
Yeah, I love painting traditional. If I could only do that, that's what I would do. I would do watercolors. I love painting in watercolors. It's my favorite thing in the world. I have drafting table right next to my desk here, and I have an easel in the closet. And I take up whenever if I ever do have free time, I'll do like a painting, and I don't know. That's my favorite. You get the most control. You get like this. There's a certain feeling of like isolation when you're away from the computer that I just cannot replicate. I tried to replicate it. Like I don't like Cintiqs, the Wacom Cintiq tablets, the ones you draw directly on the screen. I didn't generally like them, but the new one's all right. And I got that, and I was like, maybe if I'm just like have my face close to this thing, it'll feel the same. It's like isolating this. I can't see in my peripheral the other monitor. I don't see my phone. You know what I mean? It's like when you have the distance with an Intuos tablet, you kind of see your whole desk. And I always found that that kind of took me out of work a little bit, slowed me down. So it's like I know the difference between traditional and digital is that like I have this small viewing space, and I'm kind of like in my own tunnel vision, like looking at this painting or whatever. So I try to recreate that, but nothing touches when I'm painting at my desk. So it's my favorite way to do it.
Yeah, when I first started doing ZBrush, I constantly just wanted to just reach in there and just, just do that little thing that I want to do because I can't
Yeah,
find the feature.
I could do this with my thumbnail.
Exactly, and it would take me about 2 seconds, but yeah, that's my own frustrations there. Um, Now, Pad Art asks, what books help you the most in terms of learning anatomy, and do you now draw anatomical drawings from reference material or from your head? Now, I want to add to this and kind of change this question a little bit because I'm very curious about what books in general, not necessarily, human anatomy, but what are the books that really help to influence your life, Dave?
Books that help to influence life. Oh, that's way different than art. Um, I read a lot of like, I'll say the influence life stuff first. I read a lot of history books. Um, that's my favorite thing in the world. Like I read those like every night before bed. I have like a huge stack, so I just go through them. Tons of books about World War II, and like I love reading about the Roosevelts and all that kind of stuff. That I know that sounds unrelated, but it's super relatable because like when you read about like for instance like the Wright brothers and like everything that they went through to create an airplane, when people were just doing these like rudimentary planes and like everything was total crap. It's like it just was like these planes that didn't work, they'd fly for 2 seconds, and then they just decided that they were going to make all the math that would figure out how to fly a plane, and then they would build it from scratch. It's like that's so crazy to me. Things like that are really inspiring. Like I love reading books on like amazing people throughout history. That's what influences me the most in doing what I'm doing. Because whenever I feel like, oh, this is really hard, I just read about people fighting in the Pacific in World War II and like the chaos that it was and stuff. And you're just like, oh, my life is whatever. Who cares? I can work on a comic book. Are you kidding me? It's just like who cares? But books that books that help me in general with art. I like a lot of the Gurney books. James Gurney, he does imaginative realism and light and color. Like, but here's the thing: is I'm not gonna make believe that like I read all these books. Like art books, I don't know. I used to buy them because it was almost like that was easier than studying.
Mm.
You're just like, oh, I bought it. Shouldn't I know how to do it? Like, you know what I mean? It's like that feeling of you just kind of like attaining what you think you should get. It's like buying the tools off a list for school or something. And
Or you just
I
get
would,
it and you feel like, okay, yeah, I'll check it out later.
right.
I'll study it later. Yeah.
Yeah. And I honestly, I never did. I learned the most from studying on my desk, like with a desk lamp on an Apple. Like that's where I learned like everything. But anatomy wise, I think that Andrew Loomis probably helped me the most in the basic breakdown, and then Hogarth because he exaggerates the forms so much that it becomes a little easier to memorize them. But
Mm.
for those, even then, I didn't really read them. I read a little bit of Loomis's, And I think it would probably help me more if I did read them. But I don't know. It's just it wasn't something that I was like that wasn't like something that changed my life to like read those books. It was mostly me doing things on my own. Like it kind of reminds me of like I kind of always judge myself on that. Like I'm buying all this stuff and I have all these tools and things, but I'm not using them and it make me feel bad. But I think I'm a lot like my wife right now. She's going to get her doctorate, and when she's in school, she's like a straight A student, so she does really well. But like in class, like doing the learning from books and everything, like that's great. Like she'll memorize that and she's good with that, but it really doesn't sink in until she's doing it in the field, until she's doing her clinicals, like going to the hospital and working with patients and doing all that. Like that's when it starts to solidify. And I think I'm the same way. It's like I can read that stuff, but until I'm doing it, until I'm, taking action, it doesn't really sit with me. So books are great, but not if you're not really moving. And yeah, for as many books as I have, as many things as I've read about art, the one thing that's helped me the most is grabbing a shirt from my closet with a crap, this is a bad desk lamp with a warm light bulb in it, and then just dropping some rotten fruit and painting it. And that was it.
You can definitely see that you like a lot of those kind of lighting setups with a bunch of your paintings, from a few years back, right?
Yeah.
Like you can definitely see the influence of that. So it's very cool to hear where it comes from. Um, Now, next person is asking, uh, so they're coming to the Florence workshop. How or would showing studies be helpful? Or I've got some sketches, just almost no recent finished pieces. I think the main thing is don't rush whatever you're going to bring. Bring the stuff that you feel is ready to show. Otherwise, my other advice for you is just don't be a wallflower. Talk to everybody you can, because you never know. You never know what might come out of it. And
You also never know who you're talking to. You could be talking to somebody who's going to end up being like super influential, or somebody that's going to like, like obviously don't make friends for that purpose.
yeah,
That's crazy. But
but treat everybody nicely.
yeah, treat everybody as if, you know, they're a person.
What's interesting was I remember way back before I knew you, I was doing this interview with Mike Mignola, right? And
Hmm.
he was doing this art contest. This is like way, way back, and I think Obama was giving a speech at the time on livestream.com or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And then right after, because that was on front page, right after, uh, up came the Mike Mignola interview. So all of a sudden we had 500,000 people watching him say that out of all the different people that submitted art for a chance to win a free Mike Mignola drawing, he picked yours,
Yeah.
right?
That
What
was so cool.
what an amazing experience. Like at that time, was that before Crimson Daggers?
It was during, I think. I think that was like right in the beginning. I mean, I did Crimson Daggers in a large part because of what you were doing on your stream. I would see that you were doing this all the time, and my only thing that I wanted to do differently was I was just like, oh, I love what Bobby's doing. I love how you're just talking and being normal. I was just like, I want to do something like that. I think that would help me stay focused. And then I was like, but to add to it, I was like, I'm just gonna bomb the whole time. I'm just gonna do the worst studies anybody's ever seen. I was like, I'm just gonna like fail this whole time. Like that was my idea going into it. It was like, I'm not like you. Like I was like, I love what Bobby does, but I can't draw. I can't really paint. I was like, I'm just gonna do learning stuff. And yeah,
Well, I think that also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that that also actually helped your uh, fan base or whatever you want to call it. A lot of people are afraid to show stuff that doesn't look perfect in their eyes,
Yeah.
right? But is that true? Is that a true statement?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be that I think in the group that was definitely the case because, that was the whole point was that like none of us are perfect. Like, and let's prove it. Like, let's put it out there. Let's just be ourselves. Like, we're not at the end of the day, like these artists that we're all together with in this group. It's like we're not going to be the ones seeing our artwork. We're not like the only people that are ever going to see this once it goes and it's printed on a book. You know what I mean? It's like nobody's going to go back and see where we failed and judge us on that. It's like we're not going to put all these pieces in our portfolio. It's just us together. So there was this like comfort and growth with the group was that we would just share everything and just be like, yeah, this is where our shortcomings are. This is where, we're starting to see something's coming from this study. Like we're starting to see something growing. And yeah, I mean, like I think that was a big part of it. But also at the time, conceptart.org had a forum section, and in that forum section, there were a lot of artists that were just like, here I am. Like in the sketchbook section, you can still go and check it out today. I think it's all archives still. But there were artists like Bumsky, who was a Min Yum. Like if you go and look back at his work, you can go to the beginning of his sketchbook all the way to the end. It must have been, I mean, I don't really remember, but probably over 100 pages or something like that of just content that he was putting out of like, I'm getting better incrementally. And that was something that really influenced me in a huge way. Like that was like Crimson Daggers didn't start that. Crimson Daggers just continued that philosophy of just like, let's show everything. That's the reason I became an artist, period, was I went to conceptart.org. I saw people's growth and I saw that it was possible. I saw that all of these people that I thought were like just the most amazing artists, the most amazing draftsmen. I thought like, I want to do that, but it's so out of my reach. And then when you see that they started out doing these anime doodles that are just like me, that I could do it too. And you could literally see what they were studying. So any of that, like, yeah, anything like that, I think is like positive for new artists. Is just showing, that we're not like these professional artists out the gate. It's a road, and you have to travel it and suffer all the bumps and detours and all that stuff. It's like, but eventually it's going to lead somewhere. And to have a visual for that, yeah, that was indispensable. I love that. But
That's
yeah.
fantastic. Jonathan Hardesty, Mind Candy Man, that comes to mind as well when you're talking about
Mm,
somebody that just kind of just no holds barred, just showed everything, right? And
mhm.
you look at the beginning of his drawings and you're just like, wow, why is everybody commenting on this thread? And then by the end of it, you're like, holy smokes. And
Yeah, like
now,
that's why.
yeah, now he's just totally killing it. Um, so I want to, thank everybody that tuned in and watching this stream and everything. It's been fantastic, but of course, the biggest thank you goes to Dave Rapoza. Thank you very much for being on the stream, Dave. I did want to mention that next week, same time, same channel, who's the next guest? It's going to be my buddy Steven Silver. He's going to be on the stream. Um, it's going to be great. Another person that I highly respect his art and his philosophies. So definitely come back next week.
Yeah, thanks everybody for all the great questions. Really appreciate it. And, big thanks to Bobby because, I mean, obviously, like for me, I mean, without your influence, I never would have really pursued that online space. And that was really vital for me. So
Wow,
thank you.
imagine you didn't pursue the online space living on a mountain, you
I
know.
would be dead. I'd be the shining. I'd be frozen somewhere in the woods.
Well, the best thing of all is, it's like I feel very much influenced by your art and your growth as well. So, nothing but love here. So, thank you, everybody, and have a great, great day, afternoon, night, wherever you are.
For over a decade now, Schoolism workshops have been bringing incredible artists around the world to teach other artists from all walks of life. Each instructor teaches 2 to 3 hour workshops focused on professional level education. You'll be surprised how fast you can improve your artistic skills with the right knowledge. Schoolism workshops are designed for every skill level, so there's tons everyone takes away from the events, professionals and students alike. Time to upgrade your portfolio, improve your skills, and of course, have some fun, meet some great people, and be part of the industry and art community. You can get tickets for the entire 2017 Schoolism workshops, now available on schoolism.com.